Hi, this is Dr. Daniels, and you are listening to Healing with Dr. Daniels. And this is the May 16th Sunday edition 2020. And today's topic is, can antibodies save your life? Don't bet on it. So today I'm going to review recent information that exposes antibody truths that may make you wonder. But first, we're going to talk about Vitality capsules. Yay! Vitality capsules are back in stock. And you can get them at vitalitycapsules.com. We have regular and extra strength. The extra strength, there's a shipping delay. They'll show up in 10 days. But we are shipping all regular strength Vitality capsules right now. Yay! I'm so excited. Yes, and those of you who have missed Vitality capsules, you are excited too. So Vitality capsules are an everyday cleanser that helps your body detox comfortably and on a steady daily basis. So you simply can experience benefit every day. And the nice thing about them is they enhance circulation. They with the garlic and ginger, which are two ingredients in the Vitality capsules, both regular and extra strength. They also increase bile flow with Cape Aloe and Cascara Sagrada. This is very important because a lot of times people can get discomfort when toxins are released into the circulation but not removed from the body. And so the effect on the bile ducts means the bile flows into the intestines. And then the Vitality capsules stimulate the intestines so that the toxins are moved out of the body. And this is a really amazing combination that works great. So, vitalitycapsules.com, and there the difference between Vitality capsules and regular and extra strength is explained. However, I can tell you right now that the extra strength has cayenne and the regular does not. I personally take I take regular because it's more gentle and I am a wimp. There we go. Confessions. Where's my glass of water? So that's Vitality capsules. So support our sponsor. Yay! Then, of course, we have to take our turpentine. Yes. So turpentine is an amazing healing substance that actually was the main material used by doctors to heal absolutely everything prior to 1900. And we have our turpentine container, yay, with a little label on it, and a little pipette, and we just, boom, suck it up to the neck. I personally take half a teaspoon every day. I try and take it every day, but there's some days I miss. And it just makes all the difference in the world. I'm 63 years old, and this helps me stay flexible and limber and pain-free and just more durable. Okay, so here we go. All right, we're going to squeeze the last little bit out of here. And as Mary Poppins would say, a spoonful of sugar, this is white sugar, and this is cane sugar. So beet sugar, which is also white, is often genetically modified, so that's why I use cane sugar. Here we go. There we go. Very good. And if you want to find out more about turpentine, you can go to vitalitycapsules.com, enter your email address, and get your free report, everything you ever want to know about the healing powers of turpentine. And this report used to sell for $800 a copy, but you are getting it free. So, check it out. A lot of people send me all kinds of emails. It's in the report. Get the report. Read the report. There we go. Now, next, we have Shilajit. Oh, there it is. And this is Shilajit's amazing black tar from the mountains of Russia. Yay! This goes by many names. Shilajit is one. Mumio, Destroyer of Weakness. It has a lot of really impressive names. And it's a really impressive material. This is totally natural. They dig it right out of the ground, just put it in a bottle like this, no processing at all. And this is trace minerals, as a very broad spectrum of trace minerals, broader than the fulvic minerals from the United States or from India. So is Shilajit in India, in the Himalayas, but the Russian Shilajit is the best. And so we just take this goo, put it here. As you can see, it does not, there we go. It does not dissolve very well. Yeah, there we go. Right there in the bottom, does not dissolve. So we are going to do our show today, and then we're going to drink that. Yay! Yum, yum, yum. Okay, which brings us back to, can antibodies save your life? And as always, our sources are the medical industrial complex. I count on them to reveal all the information we need to know. They've done a lot of research, so we're going to check it out. And so this is Medscape Family Medicine. You should go to medscape.com and get your own Medscape account. It's just amazing. They put a lot of medical information on Medscape that is sent only to doctors, and that is not broadcast to the public. But you can kind of eavesdrop on the medical conversation. You should certainly, at least if you have a condition for which you have chosen to take medication, you definitely should be reading everything Medscape has to say about your condition. Okay, so this headline caught my eye. Hold on. Antibody testing. Hold on means like, whoa, stop. The FDA has done us a disservice. So what service is the FDA supposed to do for us? Well, they're supposed to tell us that things are safe and effective. And so if the FDA has done a disservice, that means there must be something that's either not safe or not effective, and they failed to alert doctors to that case. Okay. And so this is two doctors who are chit-chatting about the situation. Okay. So let's start at the very beginning. So what I'm going to do is share this information with you, and then I'm going to do commentary on the information as it's presented to help you like really get a grip and understand this. And then I'm going to make a recommendation at the end. How's that? Yeah, like what you can do instead. I mean, I'm pretty upbeat about this. I think that in general, the world is really going in a very positive direction for people who want to improve their lives. There has never been a better time to do it. Okay, so these are the questions. These are statements, bullet points. So whether the presence of antibodies to the virus grants immunity remains unknown. So they do not know if antibodies to the virus, the C virus, the C word, we're not going to use that, grants immunity. So antibodies might be totally ineffective and irrelevant in terms of the disease. Okay. In other words, people may still be able to get infected even though they have antibodies. People are probably not getting reinfected, and positive results on retesting are more likely a result of inaccuracy of the test. Let's just lay it out there. So we have a test that can be positive, become negative, and then turn positive again. And why is it inaccurate? The result of residual viral DNA. Whoa. RNA. This is an RNA virus. So residual means leftover or remaining, and viral is of the virus, and RNA is a type of material. Well, doesn't the RNA, isn't that what causes the infection, this RNA? So head scratch. So the person's not reinfected, but they contain infected particles. Okay. The FDA's relaxed standards and emergency use authorization for antibody testing was, in parentheses, a disservice to us. We're guessing that us here is the doctors. So the doctors are saying the FDA has standards for what a test should be, what it should do. Those standards have been lowered. And presumably this means testing that's less effective has been allowed or permitted. Okay. Because of potential cross-reactivity with other C virus antibodies. Okay, so I don't think that you totally grasp the gravity of this comment. This is like an oxymoron. So what they're saying is, we are measuring antibodies against a certain virus that we believe to be deadly contagious, and it's important for us to measure this virus. Okay, measure viral antibodies. But the test we have measures antibodies to that virus as well as, say, 5 other viruses. Okay, so the way an antibody works is an antibody is a key that goes into the lock of the virus, gloms onto it, and takes it out of the body and saves the person's life. That's the theory. Okay. But wait, if these other coronaviruses interact with the test, shouldn't the antibodies detected from those other C viruses also react with the present C virus? In other words, if you were measuring antibodies using a protein, so let's just say it's a magnet. You have a magnet and you're picking up metal slivers. All right. That magnet can pick up a metal sliver, maybe it can pick up a paper clip, maybe it can pick up different things made by metal. But whatever it picks up must be metal. So basically what you have is a test which acts like a magnet, and it's detecting, what they're saying here is several viruses, including the one of interest. And so it's looking for antibodies to the one virus of interest. So if the antibody to that one virus of interest is a valid antibody pick, and we're going to say it is, then, and it reacts with all the others, then that must mean that the human manufactured antibody is effective against all of those viruses that are detected. In other words, one thing, two things equals the same thing or equal to each other. So if we have the one thing, which is our detector, and this detector, we can say it's accurate, okay, because we're not questioning that, we're believing what we're told here. If this detector accurately detects the virus of interest, and it's an antibody detector, and it detects also other antibodies from viruses that are not of interest, what that must mean then is the other antibodies detected must also function to provide the immunity against that virus. So all an antibody does is it attaches to something and picks it up. So if you have an accurate antibody detector and it attaches to the virus of interest, the C19 virus of interest, but it also attaches to 5 other viruses. That's like having a key that fits this lock, but it also fits 5 other locks. Well, that's awesome. That means that if you have a key antibody to any of the 5 other locks, then it's also going to open that lock. This is great news. This is great news. And to put it more precisely, a human being with antibodies against any of the prior C viruses, that would be SARS and MERS, to name a couple, the common cold, yes, they would also have antibodies that would be effective against the present virus of interest, which is C19. Okay, so that is what this statement says. Goes further. For antibody testing to work in a disease that affects 3% of the population, we need a test with at least 99.7% specificity. What does that mean? That means when the test says you don't have a disease, it has to be accurate 99.7% of the time. What if it's less than that? They're going to tell us. Okay, so what we've now found then is the antibody testing, which is now being used, detects many C viruses. And let's just say it's accurate. What it's really detecting is antibodies against the C19 virus, which are also effective against the other C viruses. Okay, so it means if someone's affected, if you've had the common cold, then you would be immune, or certainly have antibodies against C19. But let's go on with the discussion. It gets even better. So C virus can be scary. There's a lot we don't know. Should you get tested? What's the role? This is what they don't know. They don't know if you should get tested. They don't know the role of antibodies. They don't know what treatments actually work. They don't know when a vaccine will show up. And they don't know how long people need to stay in place. This was published May 6th. A little more than a week ago. And this is what the doctors don't know. They don't know. And none of these questions, by the way, have been answered since then, just by the way. So despite all this uncertainty, there are some things we do know. Really. Do tell. That's what's missing from much of the discussions, a common sense approach to dealing with the virus. That's why I think you'll want to listen to my next guest, Dr. So-and-so, from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He offers the common sense insight that we need to make good decisions. Stop right there. I went to medical school, so I have a little bit of understanding about this. Okay. So at medical school, half of everything they teach is false. They just don't know what half. So we're going to listen to this doctor from, the medical industrial complex, knowing that his database is at least 50% inaccurate. Okay. But we're going to accept everything he says as true and look for internal contradictions and see if we can maybe get a little closer to what might be true. So let's start off with who should get antibody testing. Well, he says, ideally the prime people are those who feel they've been exposed to the virus and did not have symptoms. And they're suspicious that they may have been infected but or have no symptoms. Whoa. So the criteria for this particular test is a feeling. If you have a feeling. Can you feel it yet? Yeah, a feeling. So we're basing testing on a feeling. Now, I went to medical school. So we, in medical school, were basing tests on physically examining the person, and what symptoms the person tells us they have. And if they have a certain set of symptoms and we find certain things when we examine them, then that lets us know which test to order. But for this particular virus, our criteria for ordering the test is a feeling. So what are we talking about? Antidepressants? I don't know. This is very interesting. If the test is working well, and that's a big if, okay, so we're saying is this test is not working very well, then what would tell them that they had the infection and may be protected by immunity? So if the test is working well, then the presence of antibodies, a positive test, would indicate that a person had the infection and may be protected by immunity. But then again, they might not. Okay, so here's where the whole antibody situation comes in. So antibodies are not a reliable protection against infection. So the interviewer says, do you think the presence of antibodies does grant immunity? There's been a lot of debate about whether or not that's the case. What do you think? Well, I hope it does. All right, so here we have a scientist relying on hope. So we have a feeling and we have hope. Okay, so science has not yet entered the room, just saying. So I hope it does for lots of reasons. And White says, well, we all hope it does. The interviewer's like, whoa, I worked at hope. I'm interviewing you. What are you expert or what? Is it time for us to pray? So he says, right. So this doctor says, I've had the virus and my antibodies are through the roof. In fact, tomorrow I'm donating plasmapheresis so that I can be used in research. But the take-home point is we don't know if antibodies create immunity for sure. Stop right there. Vaccines create antibodies based on the scientific pronouncement that antibodies, and antibodies alone, create immunity. And so what they're saying here is we don't know if antibodies in this virus will create immunity. So, hot tip, if antibodies do not create immunity, then no vaccine will work because the vaccines work by creating immunity. So let's see what we got here. Take home point is we don't know. And I can argue with equal certainty that it would. In other words, he says, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We don't know. We don't know if antibodies to this virus will cause immunity. And so if antibodies to this virus do not cause immunity, then you can just stop the vaccine research right now because vaccine's not going to work. All right. Okay. From other viral infections, such as measles and mumps. So this doctor says, immunity from antibodies works for measles and mumps. Here's a clincher. Listen. But then we look at the other extreme, dengue fever. Dengue fever. Let me tell you what we know about dengue fever. Dengue fever is transmitted by a mosquito, which means mosquito's stinger, which is basically analogous to a hypodermic needle, injects the dengue into the unfortunate person. There is no person-to-person spread of dengue fever. Dengue fever spreads by mosquitoes biting people. In other words, it spreads only by injection. What else do we know about dengue fever? The symptoms of dengue fever are identical, and the testing, by the way, test results, are identical to that of malaria. Yep, you guessed it. Malaria was renamed dengue fever so that the tourist industry could be protected. I did a whole radio show on that. You can look in the archives for that. So dengue fever, also known as malaria, antibodies do not protect from reinfection. The treatment for malaria is hydrochloroquine, quinine. Happens to be the same drug that works for the present C virus. What else do we know? The symptoms of the present C virus are identical to dengue. Yep. He says you get antibodies to dengue, but you get reinfected, and your disease can be worse on the reinfection. So the present virus will fall somewhere in that spectrum. But we already know that with dengue, not only do you get antibodies, but the antibodies are not effective in preventing reinfection. Let's go check. I had to check this out. So we now know that a dengue vaccine cannot possibly work because antibodies to dengue do not prevent infection. In fact, if you have antibodies to dengue, aka malaria, it looks like aka C virus, then there's a problem here. So I looked this up. The vaccine to dengue. And yes, indeedy, there is a vaccine for dengue. Now, I happen to live in an area where there's a lot of dengue, so they say. And they're not offering any vaccine to dengue. Why? Because it doesn't work. So, since the present situation is the symptoms are identical to dengue, the cure is identical to the dengue cure, aka the malaria cure. So we're getting a picture here. Again, this is from Medscape. Can't make this stuff up. It's my personal stance. Okay, so now he's getting personal. What does that mean, personal? That means he and only he has this particular position, and there's no science to back it. Okay. Is that we are not seeing any cases to speak of where somebody had it and then got sick again. I think that as more time goes on, we'll answer the question. But right now, we don't know for sure. So since they don't know, but since I'm totally familiar with dengue and have studied it, I can tell you, if dengue antibodies are not going to create health and immunity, then the present situation, which is looking a lot like dengue, the antibodies / vaccine are not going to be helpful. But let's see what else he says. I tell you, don't stop there. Do you think there's more evidence than not that it does give some degree of protection? Whoa, we're getting pretty remote here. So what they're saying now is, he's asking, well, Mr. Expert, do you think that antibodies, there's more evidence that antibodies give some degree of protection? And he says, well, leaning that way. I had to look up the word some. And in order to find the meaning of the word some, I had to actually go to a legal website to look up the meaning of the word some. And this will really shock you. And so there's a few quantitative vague words like some, couple, few, many, and several. Okay. So I'm thinking that some is somewhere in the middle there. Some means at least one. Couple means two. Few means two or more. Many means a large number. You can decide what large number is. And several means three or more. So, what he has said here is, he's asked, do you think there's more evidence than not that antibodies might give immunity to even one person, and he's saying leaning that way. Well, that's a facepalm moment right there. That is sad. So he says, what about these reinfections that have been reported? And I've been reading about those. Most people are saying that those are issues of testing and not of reinfection. It's a simple RNA virus. It's not like zoster. Zoster is herpes. What are your thoughts on that? So the expert says, well, if we dig into the weeds a little bit on those stories, they were mostly people who tested positive for virus, then tested negative, and then tested positive again. So the test is an antibody test. So there's a few questions, and our interviewer did ask a question. They had symptoms, correct, when they tested positive? And the expert says, nope, they didn't have symptoms. So, whoa, the presence of antibodies does not indicate symptoms or illness, okay? Because we know that, because people are getting positive testing, negative testing, positive testing without symptoms. They had been sick, the expert says. They had the virus. They got better. They tested negative. Then they tested positive again later. That's my understanding. And the interviewer now is totally confused. He says, well, why were they retested? The expert says, I think they were looking to see if there is persistence. Between you, me, and the lamppost, they were testing to see how long they should extend quarantine. But if the test is not an indicator of disease, because we're testing, right? The test is positive and the person's healthy. So it's not a test of disease. And so the issue is, was it truly a reinfection or just a persistence RNA that they picked up a second time later on? Again, with the virus, the RNA is felt to be infectious. I don't know the answer, but my feeling is, okay, so now we have feelings. It probably wasn't reinfection. The way to really know for sure is to do molecular virology, which they haven't done. Where you do sequencing and see if it's related. So here we have the whole country shut down, and a little molecular virology with sequencing of DNA or RNA could open it up for us, and they haven't done a test yet? What? But right now, I think common sense is telling me that people are probably not getting reinfected, and that any residual testing that's positive, and some I've seen going out to almost 5 weeks, is due to residual RNA. So what he's saying is, so what they're finding now is people get the virus, recover, and their viral test is positive going out even 5 weeks. So the question is that an infectious virus that's being picked up or just a remnant? Bingo. Bingo. A remnant or an infectious particle, they can't distinguish. So far, the culture tests show that by day 14, after onset of symptoms, you can't culture virus anymore. So I think it's probably remnant. And some of it may relate to the timing of testing, correct? The interviewer is trying to give them a little help here. We don't always hear when exactly they were tested. And the expert says, oh, yeah, that's right. So White says, I appreciate your common sense approach. You say we need some common sense. So I want you to make sense. So the interviewer is saying stuff is not adding up here. I've worked at the FDA, so I know that in authorization that there's a term in the weeds of regulation. It's a lower level of standard. They don't even have to get all the data completely done before coming to the market. We're in a public health emergency. We want to get things out there, but that has caused challenges with the accuracy of tests. How concerned are you about the accuracy? And how would I, as a patient, know I'm getting a good test? hold on to your hat here. The expert says you are not going to know if you're getting a good test. And then he goes on to say casually, and that's a huge problem. And I get it. I understand why the FDA relaxed and went to early authorization use, but I think in retrospect, it was a disservice to us. Here's why. And I want you to listen to this, and this is going to really explain to you and help you understand this whole antibody situation. We have all been infected with a C virus in our lifetime, like AKA common cold. That means that we have antibodies to C virus in our bloodstreams that are just hanging around. If the test for SARS, C virus 2, C virus 19 virus, antibodies is not really specific for that particular virus, there will be cross-reaction from these other C virus antibodies onto that test. So if your body is making antibodies against the C virus, and it's ever seen a C virus, and antibodies make you immune, then you're already immune to SARS, C virus 2, and C19. There's a bombshell. Yep, there's a bombshell. They insist on rigor before they approve things, and by relaxing those standards for this, though I understand why they did it, I think they've done us a little bit of a disservice from a common sense perspective. All right, but let's see if we can't understand this. Okay. We have here a spoon. Okay. See a spoon? Okay. Let's say I have a test or an antibody. Let's just say an antibody. This antibody detects objects that have a handle like this, grabs onto that handle, and removes those things from the body. Okay. So if I'm detecting antibodies that grab handles, and the C19 virus has a handle, then those same antibodies will grab that same virus and remove it. Game over. Done. So then, again, if we're going to believe the antibody theories, and, hey, who am I to question, right? It gets better. So does it matter if I get a pinprick when I go to the lab, or if I have a needle inserted in my vein to draw blood? Which is a better test? I said, oh yeah. It is better to put the vein in your arm. He says, well, how come? Well, because with a blood draw, you're going to get plasma. You're getting a large volume that can be run on a test. With the pinprick, you're getting just a drop or two of blood, and it's less likely to be accurate. I just want to stick up for the pinprick test and say some plasma does come out in the pinprick. Now, how good the lab is at isolating plasma from blood on a pinprick, I can't say, but plasma does come out, just saying. So just a drop or two of blood, and it's less likely to be accurate. So I think that for right now, what we need are standardized tests with published false positive rates. Ooh. And he's going to explain this to you here. This is important. I'm going to go into little statistics here. Let's say we have a test that's got a we're going to take his numbers, believe his numbers, 3% false positive rate, which is 97% specificity. If we apply that to a population that has less than 5% prevalence, so the majority of people have not had it, that test, in terms of what we call positive predictive value, could be wrong 50% of the time, and that is not helpful. So the present test they've calculated is wrong 80% of the time. Who wants to submit to a test that's wrong 80% of the time? Not me. But maybe you do. I don't know. So it depends on the number of people who have the disease in the population. The expert says, exactly. For a test to really work well in a disease that is only affecting 3% of the population at most, we need a test that is at least, drum roll, 99.7% specific. And I'm not sure we have that proven yet. Not sure. I'm absolutely sure it's not proven because the CDC has published numbers indicating that that is not the case. So the present test does not rise to the level of accuracy needed in the present population. I'm not sure we have that proven yet. So the take-home point is that I would not get an antibody test until we have a lot more validation. This is coming from a doctor, a true believer, who himself, by the way, has gotten a test. The test was positive, and he chose to believe it, which is fine. So it gets better. So the interviewer says, well, wait, you were infected with COVID-19. Tell us how you got infected and what's been your experience. As well as an accident of sorts. My son, who lives in New York, was coming back to Birmingham. We're going to guess it's Alabama, a long car ride. He was going to drive, but I was in Boston, so I took the train and met him. On the way, he started to not feel well. By the day we got to Birmingham, he was having a fever. We looked at each other. We knew he almost certainly had COVID. Now, this is a nice story, but quite frankly, we don't have COVID tests on these two before they got in the car. So we don't know if they were already positive. We quarantined ourselves in the house. I got sick the next day. Not bad, but by day 6, it was pretty awful. And as a physician, the worst thing was knowing what would happen if my breathing deteriorated. I would be in the hospital, maybe a ventilator, and that was a nightmare scenario for me. So this is a doctor, one who believes in the system, and he's terrified. So every night for 8 nights in a row, I suffered through that anxiety of worry about it. Fortunately, by day 14, it went away. Okay, so he got infected, and it went away. Did your son get a test? Yes, of course. And we're both positive, so we definitely had it. Again, we have a reasoning breakdown here, right? Yeah, just want to point that out for you. So we don't have tests on them before they got sick or before they got in the car. So we're assuming association does not equal causality. And the interviewer says, well, it's a success story, as most are success stories. In other words, most people who test positive for the virus, 98%, never require medical attention. So the test, as we know it, does not predict one of the two things we want to know. So we want to know, does the person require medical attention? So in this case, they're both COVID positive, yet they did not require medical attention. So the test fails as an indicator or predictor of who needs medical attention. The other thing you want the test to predict is, can this person infect other people? Again, we don't have enough evidence here to determine if that's what happened. In other words, what's maybe transmitted between the two was a common cold. Maybe it wasn't the C virus. So yes, they are success stories. My son and I volunteered for a research study looking at immune response on the day we got tested for the virus. That study has continued, and we sent the blood off to colleagues of mine, that means my good buddies, at the University of Pennsylvania. I graduated from there. And they have made very specific tests for research purposes. I have a high titer, so tomorrow I'm being plasmapheresed so they can use my plasma for a lot of test validation. So in other words, they're getting plasma from somebody who had a positive test and had symptoms. And now they're going to use that person's antibodies as the gold standard. If the tests that they have on the shelf can detect positive in this specimen, then the test is valid. Now you see how this is really treacherous, right? It's really treacherous because they don't have a documented person who was negative for the antibody, then became positive and became ill. They don't have that. So this person has antibodies, but we don't know if it's a spurious association. So scientifically speaking, it is not appropriate to use this person's plasma, just saying. And so the interviewer says, well, you mentioned common sense. Oh, let's talk about the plasma. The expert says, yes, this plasma seems, so now we have feelings, we have beliefs, and now seems, on our early reports, is helpful in, the magic word, some patients. What's some? Some is one or more. That is not a lot. So it's not shown helpful in several patients. That would be 3 or more. Not a couple of patients. That would be 2. Not many patients. Some. So we now have a therapy that's seriously questionable. If it's only beneficial in some people, that is 1 or more. In other words, not even several. This is frightening that they are taking plasma from an individual that's not a proven case. When I say proven case, test negative, test positive, became sick. This is not what they have. And this person, even though he is over his illness, totally fine, he seems to have these antibodies. So the question is, were these antibodies in his system all along before he got sick? And they're just continuing to hang around? Again, we don't have the rigor of science has not been performed here. So this is what they're basing future population therapies on. This is pretty frightening. My son made a plasma donation as well. I don't know how many patients received it in New York. So they're taking plasma from these 2 individuals and giving them to other people. And again, we don't have a documented case where somebody was negative, then tested positive, and then became ill. So we don't know if this positive situation is just something that they were both positive before they got sick, and during their sickness and after, where their sickness was unrelated to their positivity. So this is a little more rigor would be needed before you start applying something to 327 million people, which is the population of the United States. So what common sense advice would you give viewers? We are several weeks into the epidemic. Most people think we've reached our peak and are on the downward trend, though it's still a serious condition. What common sense advice do you have for folks? Common sense is that all this virus cares about is survival and replication, and it's still here. We have the vast majority of citizens in our country who are susceptible. We've been successful at putting a wall between the virus and these susceptible people with the stay-at-home orders. If you take the wall away, what does common sense tell you? These things will come back together and we're going to get another surge in cases. Again, a surge in cases, as he and his son experienced, is not a surge in deaths. We have to be smart and be able to keep susceptible people away from the virus. And that can involve a series of measures. But the fact is that this thing is here. It's not going away anytime soon. We all need to start getting that into our heads, not just awareness, but into the point of comprehension. What does it mean to be living with this virus in our midst for the next several months? It's going to take sacrifice. What does it mean? So he still hasn't given any common sense advice to the common man or even the common doctor. So the interviewer says, well, is the vaccine going to be here in 6 to 12 months? The expert says, no. Even if we had one that we knew worked, we're going to have mass produce it. If there are 300 million people who will need the vaccine in the U.S., and if you assume two doses, that's 600 million doses, and this is a worldwide pandemic. Even if we had a vaccine, we aren't going to be able to scale up to that degree of production for at least 20 months. Well, what's the optimism? Hopefully some of the drugs that are in development will be shown to work. That would be a game changer because, this is the expert, even if someone got infected, we can catch them early like we do with Tamiflu, which is, by the way, proven ineffective, just saying, for influenza. If you can catch it early, intervene, and abort the symptoms, and then the person still develops immunity, but they won't get as sick, that's the hope. Well, Mr. Expert, I want to thank you for sharing your insights. The expert says thank you for having me. So he says we should sit and fold our hands and wait for 20 months and shelter in place for 20 months. Now, all he did was pick up his kid and drive his kid home, and his kid happened to be infected. So sheltering in place did not prevent the spread from him in his case. And I also will mention that sheltering in place, people who have diligently sheltered in place are turning up positive for COVID. In other words, they were negative, and now they're turning up positive, even though they've sheltered in place. So sheltering in place is not working. So what we've managed to deduce from this expert is that antibodies do not create immunity. Antibodies are generally not protective. And he was very clear that in dengue, antibodies are not protective. And in dengue, antibodies do not prevent reinfection. Yet, do the research, look it up online. You can see there is a dengue vaccine. All right. So, what we are saying now about the present test is if a person is sick, the test cannot predict if they're in need of medical attention. If they're feeling fine, it cannot predict if people are getting sick or able to make other people sick. So right now, the test only has a 20% predictive value that there might be a virus present. And in any case, it has pretty close to zero predictive value of transmissibility and the need for medical attention. So, where does that leave us? Well, bottom line, antibodies are not a good bet. Antibodies are not a good bet. And in the C virus category, if an antibody is present for one C virus, it should work for all C viruses. Why? Because the C viruses are part of a class and they have a large amount of genetic similarity. And so this antibody, as the test is indicating, should be able to latch on to any and all C viruses. But wait, what happens after the antibody latches on to the organism? There you go. That is missing, I think, a lot. First of all, you're skipping a step, right? The first step is the barrier to keep it out. No, it's not a mask, and no, it's not gloves. If a virus enters through your nose, you have mucus, and that's what causes you to sneeze. And you just kick it right back out. The skin, if it's not broken, acts as a barrier, and if it is broken, as in a mosquito bite, it's injected. And if you enters through the mouth, it goes in the intestines, and boom, you poop it out. So having frequent bowel movements will cause the virus to enter and leave before it can even cause an infection. Finally, so barrier number one is keep it out. Next is removal. And to remove it, you need good hydration. That means lots of water. Blood has to circulate to it to get it to the liver, lungs, kidneys, which are organs of excretion. And so just a little plug for Vitality Capsules. Vitality Capsules does help the circulation. Now, if it gets to the liver, it gets dumped in the poop. If it ends up in the lungs, it gets dumped when you cough up sputum. And if it gets to the kidneys, it gets dumped in your urine. There you go. However, you need number 3, which is nutrition. So your liver, kidney, or lungs need to be well nourished enough, strong enough to do their part of the job, to remove it from the blood so it can enter into the poo, into the sputum, or into the urine, or from the skin into the sweat glands. Now, this is why antibodies can't confer resistance. Because if the person's nutritional status is not strong enough, in other words, you're not eating enough nutritious food, then the liver, the kidney, lungs, or skin can't do their part to remove the virus. Also, if the person doesn't have good hydration or circulation, the virus can't be removed. And first is the barrier. The barrier is the number one defense. So you definitely want the skin as a barrier. You don't want any breaks in the skin. What does that mean? No injections, no testings, no needles. Even a medicine injectable, none of it. Now, notice antibodies are not essential to this process. Not at all. So the presence of antibodies prior to infection is neither necessary nor enough to prevent disease. And as we now know about the C virus, 98% of those infected with the virus for the first time do not require medical attention. So 98% did perfectly fine without antibodies. So then we look at those with antibodies, we see that many people have antibodies and no symptoms. So at least 80% of those with a positive test were never even exposed to the particular virus in question. That's number one. And the remaining 20% who were exposed to the virus, a large number of those are not sick. So there is no correlation between symptoms and sickness and being positive for the virus. In other words, the antibody presence was not enough to protect the people from illness. So if you have the antibodies, you can still get sick. And if you don't have the antibodies, you can still be well on first exposure. So this is definitely a case where the having antibodies is actually irrelevant. It is actually irrelevant. What you really need is you need to keep your skin intact. One way to do it is obviously stop all needles. Don't use needles. If you're a diabetic, especially if you're type 2, this is the time to control your situation without needles, because the needles pierce the skin and things enter through the skin, and then the whole rest of this immune system needs to kick in, and if you're diabetic, it's not going well already. So how do you maintain the barrier? One, obviously don't stab yourself, but even better is you can just simply put an oil on your skin from head to toe, and that oil acts as a barrier. So any virus hitting it will get stuck and won't penetrate. Yay! So my favorite oil is castor oil. The best way to use that is waist down, once a day for 3 days, and then head to toe. Next is removal. Good hydration. That means drink enough water. Enhance your circulation. Water does that. You want to definitely, if you're in a cool climate, keep warm. You definitely want to exercise. You don't have to do a lot. Just like a walk around the block will do it. So you definitely don't want to shelter in place, because that's going to decrease your circulation and increase your susceptibility to these things. And again, circulation, Vitality Capsules Extra Strength with the cayenne definitely helps with that. Removal also, again, bowel movements, 3 a day, and Vitality Capsules help you reach that 3 a day. So if you have anything entering your body and you're having bowel movements briskly, 3 a day, whatever enters is going to be deposited in the toilet. It's not going to hang around long enough to give you troubles. And nutrition. Nutrition is key. This is a really good time to definitely cook at home. So many people are sheltering in home anyway. Many restaurants are closed. But, if you're really serious about your immune system, cook at home and cook from scratch. And I'm really encouraged by seeing all of the videos online about how to make your own bread, how to make your own sourdough starter, how to start your own garden. So these are things you should do so that you are not eating contaminated food, and so you can eat food that has the highest nutritional value. So those are the things to do to protect yourself at this time. We do not have much time for questions, but I think I can take one question. Let me go look for the questions. Okay, here's a quickie. When I eat pine nuts, I have a violent reaction when it comes out both ends simultaneously. Can I still take turpentine as it is distilled? You can, and also turpentine does not come from the pine nuts. But I would just take a very small dose, like maybe one drop on maybe a quarter teaspoon of sugar. So just take a test dose. And if you have any reaction to that, and if you do, it should be mild. But even a mild reaction to the one drop, then I would say turpentine is not for you. And maybe you want to just try Vitality capsules to help keep your immune system supported and keep things cleaning out. All right, that is it for questions today. And as always, think happens.